My friends, good day. The former European Commissioner, the very friendly Thierry Breton, has been added to the list of entities under embargo by the United States. There are 5 in total, 5 close to the European Union, who appear on this list across the Atlantic. They are called the heads of the censorship complex. In other places, like Wyoming, for example, they talk about the tyranny and extortion complex, because very often when they want to censor, they go heavy-handed with threats and also financial threats, so extortion. In this video, I'll explain what will happen to Thierry Breton and his associates before we proceed. Contrary to what the French media have reported, it's not just about someone who can't travel to the United States because they don't want him there. It goes further than that. In the United States, there are numerous embargo lists. It's a science, embargology. You could practically get a PhD in it, a doctorate in that field. So you have 2 main lists. The Office of Foreign Assets Control list. That's an office under the United States Treasury, so the Department of the Treasury, the American Treasury. And then you have another one, the Bureau of Industry and Security. That's the Bureau of Industry and Security, which is under the Department of Commerce. But be careful, these lists are not exhaustive. You have to check with many agencies and in several files to know which entities are under embargo. So it can be a country, an administration, it can be an organization, a company, even a person. Let's say a person with a certain name who has a Russian passport, but sometimes they have that name, but they might also have a Bulgarian passport. They can tell you that you are not allowed to sell a television to a certain hospital in Cuba, you are not allowed to lend money for more than 30 days in Venezuela, and so on. Actually, it's a very complex system, which is rarely exhaustive. The perverse effect it creates is that because it's complicated, if told not to lend money to Venezuela for over 30 days, you won't lend for 29 or 15 days either. It's so complicated you're afraid you'll mess up. If you're told not to sell a television to that hospital, you're not going to sell them spoons and chairs either, because you're afraid that somewhere in another file that's there, and if you get caught doing it, it's going to be bad. So American companies tend to react very harshly to this kind of ban when an entity is under embargo. Well, they don't want to hear about it. What does it actually mean for someone who ends up on that list? It goes beyond the no-fly list. It means that American airlines won't want to sell them a ticket, but that's not all. The person can't have a Gmail account, can't have a Facebook account, can't open an account with Uber, with Airbnb, can't open an eBay account, can't use X, can't use WhatsApp, basically can't use almost anything that's American. He can't even legally buy a Windows or Microsoft Word license. You see? And if you buy it for her because she tells you, listen, Microsoft blocked my card because it's a Visa or an American Express card. Can you buy me a Word license? You could go to jail for that. You see what I mean? So these are people who will end up completely isolated, sometimes far beyond the initial embargo ban. Now, why? What's really going on? So there's one thing you need to know about Americans. Since their independence from the United Kingdom, Americans have a detail that's very important to know. That means that Americans, if you will, in their mentality, they have taken their independence. It was a war. It was something they fought for, so they wouldn't have to answer to Europeans, which is very important to them. They have in their constitution a number of articles, like the first one about freedom of speech. They have another article in their amendment, the 4th one, which limits the power of the state to investigate people, to search, for example, the DSA. Rather, the chat control that I mentioned in this channel, chat control, which allows the state to analyze in real time the screen content of millions of Europeans' phones without any court decision, without any crime being suspected or anything. It's just like that. They scan. And then if there's an AI that detects questionable content on the phone, the police are called automatically. That's a violation of the 4th Amendment of the American Constitution, which specifically limits this kind of intrusion. That's for proven criminal cases with investigations, not for targeting everyone. We can't treat the whole population as potential criminals and prioritizing the state, saying, thankfully, the state prevents crimes. There's also the 5th Amendment, which is the amendment against self-incrimination. No one is required to testify against themselves. No one is required to incriminate themselves. What the European Union is doing, well, it's going against these amendments. Some may argue these amendments apply only in the United States and that the European Union acts independently. In fact, it's worse. Let me explain. Let's take the First Amendment. It limits the power of the American federal government to restrict freedom of speech in the United States. Today, the European Union claims authority over Americans' expression, believing it has extraterritorial rights. It claims the DSA regulation applies to the United States and targets several countries currently targeted by the American State Department. You see European Union countries in Europe with DSA regulation, chat control, and more. You see the United Kingdom, which has the Online Safety Act. You have Australia, also with an Online Safety Act. You also have New Zealand. So you have about 30 countries that are creating a front to limit block freedom of expression on the internet. And this in a extraterritorial way. It's not just on their own land, but everywhere in the world, including in the United States. Let me give you a simple example. There's a website called 4chan, which is a site. It's a kind of portal run by an anonymous discussion forum managed by a group of anarchists in the United States. They're Americans with servers and operations based in the United States. Well, the Office of Communications, which is supposed to regulate the internet and the media in the United Kingdom, sends them an email in the United States saying, "You are not complying with British law. You have to tell us that you must comply with British law and also tell us how you are going to comply with our law." So we have a violation of the First Amendment of the American Constitution, but also of the Fifth, because they are being asked to write, to make amends, to confess their wrongdoings, to admit how they are not moderating the content on their platform. And all of this they have to submit in writing. And on top of that, this is completely extrajudicial, because it's a foreign organization writing directly to an American citizen. I mean, if you have valid reasons to write to or contact an American citizen in a legal context, you request judicial assistance under the existing conventions. But here their actions were extrajudicial. They treated it as if the guy living in Texas or California was living in London. He's at home, receives direct messages, and others got the same treatment. Let me remind you that Thierry Breton in 2024, when Elon Musk, who had bought Twitter some time ago, wanted to host a presidential debate with the guest being candidate Donald Trump, well, Thierry Breton wrote to Elon Musk, to dissuade him with a letter bearing the European Union letterhead. This is very poorly received across the Atlantic. It's considered foreign interference in the American democratic process. You understand that after a while, especially when these are threatening letters, and on top of that, they're accompanied by requests for money. Well, there you go. We're dealing with organized extortion, you see? So that's why today in the United States, there are lawmakers who are starting to take a stand, because they're realizing that their partners from yesterday, the Europeans in this case, are starting to fall into totalitarianism. Eventually, it endangers their citizens and businesses. So what they're trying to do is, well, it's to try to create a counterbalance, to create a balance of power. So now they're starting to target individuals, to put them under embargo, and it won't stop there. So if you look from the outside, you see that Europe, the European Union, has problems with the United States. That's something we know now. Some have even threatened to ruin the United States, just as they once did Russia. Well, they also have a problem with Russia. They have a problem with China. So actually, it's paranoia if you look at it. It's an organization that's becoming completely paranoid by turning the whole world against itself. The European Union will collapse eventually. By the way, I think we're in an endgame situation now. When you have an organization as dysfunctional as the European Union, on top of that, they're targeting the whole world, but people abroad don't take them seriously. When they hear about the European Union, they think of the cork attached to the bottle. I mean, that's it. You have countries in debt, countries that are collapsing, all that. Honestly, you just don't go. The people who work in the European Union give themselves power, want to give themselves importance, want to put on airs. that they don't really have. So earlier, for example, there was the French president, Emmanuel Macron, who posted a tweet saying that we need to return to European digital sovereignty. Well, it's funny. It really makes people laugh at home, this statement, because look, if we look at or consider, or if we take stock of the companies that are involved in American digital sovereignty, you have AMD Intel, Microsoft, you have Nvidia, you have X, you have Meta, which owns Facebook, you have WhatsApp, Instagram, all that. Okay, we can name them, we can make a list. The list is long. We can talk about Dell, we can talk about Hewlett Packard, we can talk about International Business Machines, about Oracle, we can talk about the clouds without which digital sovereignty doesn't exist. Digital sovereignty requires a cloud, specifically a major world-leading one. Amazon Web Services, Amazon, that's American too. You have Azure from Microsoft, that's American. You have Google Cloud Platform, the Google Cloud, also American. You have Alibaba, well, that one's Chinese. Actually, if you want, when you look at it, all the companies that make up today's cloud economy, sorry, that's the washing machine. All the companies that make up the cloud of the digital economy. Well, there isn't a single one that's European. That doesn't exist. There's no European equivalent. And why is that? Because Europe is too bureaucratic to allow the development of modern startups. It's just not possible. Europe is self-destructing. Not only are industries that are more than 100 years old shutting down, but even modern startups that could be at the cutting edge of technology, like AI, for example, like artificial intelligence, can't manage to exist in Europe. Whereas in the United States, people go to Silicon Valley, they meet investors, they meet incubators, and they're helped to take off. They create unicorns, startups that are worth more than $1 billion. And then in Europe, instead of rolling out the red carpet for them, we roll out the tax forms. We talk to them about deductions. We talk to them about regulations. We talk to them about carbon. I'm going to say it's a destructive system. The issue is that Europeans missed a major technological shift. I'm going to say this. What's terrible is that if I look at it from my African perspective, it's that in Africa, we've missed a number of turning points because we had very deep structural problems. Europe had made those turns. If you look at it technologically speaking, Europe until not long ago, we could send objects into space, we could build high-speed trains, we could dig a tunnel under the channel, fly the Concorde, all that. Traces of that remain along with some related know-how. The problem is Europe is destroying itself. Major European brands are gone, industries relocated or sold, European flagships are destroyed daily. We spent, how much was it? 1.4 billion for swimming in the Seine, and nobody swims in the Seine. Let me remind you that there's a company that makes artificial hearts, a French company that went bankrupt for 34 million. See what I mean? That means here we have a Europe that is very bureaucratic, very ideological, and that is managed by people who are making it fall behind in terms of civilization on one hand. To retrace history, meaning to go back in time, and on top of that, destroy the achievements, and then destroy the relationship with the entire planet. So there you have it. Somewhere, personally, being very attached to freedom of expression, I'm still very happy that there's a country that is starting to defend that. The United States has been inconsistent on this. It's not, you shouldn't think First Amendment, all that. If you look at the Biden era, for example, it wasn't like that, during the Biden era. It was, censorship came from both sides. It came from Europe, but also from the United States. They were really into it. But now, today, this administration seems to be committed, at least for now, to freedom of speech, even if there are responses that involve Master Thierry Breton on this. Regarding the list of people under embargo, I personally find it a bit short. It falls somewhat short of the real threat. I would have liked answers that were a bit more serious than symbolic responses like the one we just saw. It's a symbolic response. It's good. It's nice to see from time to time the nebulous censorship taking some hits. But I think it's minor compared to the real dangers it poses to civilization, intellectual growth, and people's freedom. That nebulous thing. Let me remind you, in the United Kingdom, and I'll tell you, in the United States, The state does not have the right to intervene in this, according to the Constitution. We don't have the right to block freedom of speech. We don't have the right to block people's voices. And you feel it when you're in the United States, right? At the start of the year, I was in Washington and happened to meet some people near the White House. We started talking. You see that Americans, they talk, they're not afraid. They talk about politics, they talk about society, they talk about everything. They're not afraid of judgment or arrest. This is free speech in American society. That's what I appreciate. I enjoy talking and debating with them. When you arrive, for example, in the United Kingdom, you'll have a hard time, a really hard time getting a Brit to say something against their state or against the royal family or against anything. They're afraid. You can feel there's a fear. You can feel there's a social fear because it comes from above. Look, in the United States, they have a constitution. This constitution clearly defines the rights of citizens and sets limits, puts limits on the state. The United Kingdom has no constitution. The difference is that in the United Kingdom, they're subjects, while in the United States, they're citizens. In the United Kingdom, people are subjects because there is no British constitution making them subject to others' will. That means the constitutional rights of the British person. Well, they are variable, they are flexible, they depend on the whims of some and others, on the sensitivity of the elites who run the country at any given time. There you go. Your constitutional rights are defined by our current interpretation. In 6 months, that will change because our sensibilities have evolved. So they're discretionary rights, if you will. They're rights left to the discretion of judges, leaders, ministers, and so on. So anything can happen. You know, that's the model they're trying to export, but it doesn't export very well. Because look at the United States, for example. The First Amendment doesn't protect threats. You can be arrested for threatening someone. But the threat, it's clear. We both know what a threat is. If someone threatens you and 10 of us hear it, we all recognize it as a threat. But when you look at the United Kingdom or France, hate speech in the United Kingdom we even have. Now we're targeting speech that causes distress. Just that, speech causing distress. What is it really? It's left to interpretation. It's vague. Actually, anything can fall under it, any kind of speech. So that's it. They want to have total discretion. I'll give you a simple example. Recently, the police arrested a woman, a Christian, who was maybe 200 meters from an abortion clinic. And what did she do? She arrived on the sidewalk, she stopped, she was alone, there was no protest behind her, she didn't have a sign, there was nothing on her. Her attitude or outfit didn't send any particular message. She just stopped like that, just like I'm here. She began praying silently in her mind. A cop came over and told her, "You're praying inwardly, deep inside, you're praying." And he arrested her. Just to show you the kind of discretionary power the police have, total freedom, you see. And that's especially true since the health crisis, since COVID. They've discovered a taste for arbitrariness. Now they just don't stop, you see. So this model, they want to export it. They think that now they have how should I say it? They have global and extrajudicial authority. Well, it's not working with the United States. Well, we'll see what happens in the future, but it's something that could escalate. And I think what we're seeing is the end game. It's the end of the European Union. It's over for them. It's finished. It's finished. When you have a bureaucratic administration that is a collection of different disparate countries, 3/4 of which are on the verge of demographic and economic collapse. It's true that you don't threaten the great powers, you don't threaten the United States, you don't threaten China. You see what I mean? You're not going to win this war. You're just going to bark, and then they'll end up coming after you. That's it. They'll end up making you pay. The stare balls, that's what's going to happen to the European Union, figuratively speaking, you see? That's it. Anyway, I'll leave you now. I wish you a Merry Christmas. I'm not sure I'll make a video before Christmas, so I wish you a Merry Christmas. I say Merry Christmas, not Happy Winter or Season's Greetings. Last year, a neighbor in the United Kingdom wished me Happy Season's Greetings. I told him, listen, Merry Christmas. Either you say Merry Christmas or you say nothing to me, or you just say hello, how are you, hello. I'm doing very well. But please don't say Season's Greetings or Winter Holidays or similar. I'm African from a Muslim country. I say Merry Christmas, okay? And you're there telling me Happy Winter Holidays, okay? Well, I'm tired, you see, I was tired. Then I left. That's why I left. I got tired at some point. I couldn't take it anymore. Anyway, let me show you one. I was invited to an interesting meal with friends. It was in Mauritius. It was for Christmas. That's what we did. Me, it's not just that I won't fight, I'm proud not to fight. You're going to send 20-year-old kids to die for the vermin who rule you. Those who ended up on a memorial in 14 or 39 were scammed. There are good debates and we don't always agree. But that doesn't stop friendship. It doesn't stop us from sharing and discussing with respect, joy, and good humor. I'll put the link below the video. See you very soon, my friends, and we'll see each other soon.